What's up, HyperFast Nation? On this episode of the podcast, I sat down with a member of the Keri Shull Team who began in the real estate industry on the lending side, has successfully made the switch to the agent side, now an agent of over 4 years who is doing dozens of deals a year. Welcome to the show, Charlie Peavley. What's up, Charlie? How are you doing?
Dan, I'm well. How are you? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've got a lot to cover. I know your story, I think, and how you transitioned from one part of the real estate industry to now being a highly productive real estate agent. That's something we'll talk about, as well as what's going on right now in the real estate market and how real estate agents should handle that. With their clients, right? Before we get into some of that really good stuff, why don't you give folks a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate?
Sure. So straight out of college, I started in the mortgage industry. I was basically a loan officer assistant for one of the area's top producers. And so I got my start there learning about just kind of the ins and outs of the mortgage industry and just fell in love with the real estate industry as a whole, and figured out that my talents would be just better utilized selling real estate. And so here we are. It was my first real estate experience. I started with the team coming up on 4 years ago now, so it's hard to believe it's already been that long, but here we are.
So 4 years in at the Keri Shull Team, you had experience prior to that in the lending side of things.
Yep.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the lending side versus the agent side?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, Dan, is lending was very much, it was a lot more transactional than selling real estate is, right? When you're selling real estate, you're meeting with someone, you're out in the field with showings with them, you're experiencing firsthand all of those emotions that your buyer is feeling or that your seller might be feeling when they're selling their home that they've lived in for 50 years, whatever it may be. You experience all those things. On the lending side, it's not much more than a couple of phone calls maybe, and it's very transactional. It's, hey, what are the numbers? What's the best loan for me? Whatever that conversation looks like, and then it's kind of on to the next one, get them through the pipeline, and it's on to the next one. That's the biggest difference for me. It's just like transactional versus a little bit more of an emotional investment, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the real estate, buying a home for most people is part emotion, part financial. I think in most cases people buy it for emotional reasons, then justify it financially, right? And then as the lender, you're primarily going to be on the financial side of it. Whereas the agent, you're going to be the one that has to be like part-time therapist a little bit, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not, so there's sometimes you don't have to wear just the realtor hat. You get to wear the therapist hat and the marriage counselor hat and anything that you can think of. Somebody that's been selling real estate long enough has probably worn that hat at some point. So you're definitely right.
How did the team, the Keri Shull Team, prepare you for the transition and dealing with clients?
Dan, for me, it was all about the training. And you'll hear any agent that comes and starts here talk about the world-class training that we have. That was the biggest thing for me because, coming from the lending side, there were certain advantages that I may have had over somebody who's never experienced that side of the industry. Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I've never shown a home or written an offer or whatever that, everything that the industry entails, like on our side, selling, I'd never done any of that. And so the training that we received was top notch. And so everything that we covered prepared me immensely for that. And being set up to succeed from day one. It was never a jump out of the boat, hope you can swim scenario. Not one bit.
What has your business, in terms of growth and number of deals, volume per year, what does that look like over the last 4 years?
I mean, it's grown every year. The first year I think it was just a handful of deals, and it's grown every single year. I've made more money every year that I've been on the team. So.
All right. Well, let's talk now specifically what's going on in the market. I think a year ago you were probably dealing with buyer emotions around the fact that there'd be 10 offers on a home and they'd lose out. Now I think that the emotional challenge is still there. It's just shifted. We're
Absolutely.
we're seeing more inventory.
Yep.
Certainly not a ton of inventory, right? We're still probably under 3 months inventory, so still technically seller territory market, but interest rates are higher. People have to pay more. How have buyers reacted to that, and how are you adjusting?
Yeah, so it's been very interesting the past really like 3, 4, 5, 6 months as rates have started to creep up. The buyers that are going to buy, they're going to buy regardless. And you hear it all the time, whether you say it or somebody else on Instagram says it. They say date the rate, marry the house, right? And that's what I'm telling people too, right? And I think people understand that. And the fact that other buyers are fearful or have enough uncertainty around kind of interest rates going up to back out of the market, that's wonderful. That's awesome for my clients. And I'm coaching my clients to look at that as like, okay, the rates are going to go up. People are going to be either priced out of what they could afford 6 months ago or a year ago. They're either going to be priced out or they're going to be scared to death, and now they're no longer competitors. So that is the land of opportunity for you. And so a year ago when it was, basically you put the house on the market on Wednesday, you have 2 open houses, you set an offer deadline for Monday at noon, you look through 20 offers, you pick the best one, and then you go on to the next person, right? And so now, and that's on the sell side obviously, but if you're looking at it from the buy side, you have some people that write 3 or 4 or 5 or more offers, and then there's a point where they're going to get discouraged, then you're going to get discouraged, and then then you get the phone call that's like, okay, now we're going to rent, and then you got to wait another year, right? So that's happened to me. That's happened, I'm sure, to other agents on the team, right? So now it's gone from that to, okay, like interest rates are up, you're still qualified to buy the same. You're still qualified to buy at the same price point, and now we're going from that situation that I was just alluding to. You're not escalating $100,000. Are there instances where that's going to happen? Absolutely. A house that's priced accordingly, that if you like it as a buyer, there's a very good chance that somebody else is also going to like it, right? And so you got to coach your clients to that part of it, right? If it's great and it works for you and you love it, don't wait 24 hours to write an offer, because somebody else is probably going to love it just as much as you do, and they're not going to wait, and they're going to get it, and you're going to lose.
Hey, hold that thought for a minute. Do you want to take your real estate business to the next level? If you do, there's no reason to go it alone. Learn from people who've been where you want to go. Keri and I have sold billions of dollars in real estate. We've netted over 7 figures for 7 years in a row now, and we want to see if you would be a good fit to work for us. We don't work with a lot of people, but we want to give you a chance to get on a free strategy call to see if we can help you get your business to the next level. Go to hyperfastcoach.com and apply for your discovery session today. Again, that's hyperfastcoach.com.
Right?
I think another interesting framework is to position, the choice like this, especially if you're talking about a first-time home buyer that's renting.
Mm-hmm.
Most people probably would not buy a house or get a loan that's a 1-year arm. Would you agree with that? Like, most people will not do a 1-year arm.
I think the concept of an adjustable rate mortgage just scares people in general.
Right.
And
well, let's talk about the term.
There's a
here.
lot
let's
of missed
focus on this.
opportunity.
I think I think 5 year, 7 year probably makes sense for a lot of people because you're going to move. But what about a 1 year? Do you think most people would do a 1 year arm that adjusts every year?
I don't know anybody honestly that would do that.
Right.
I don't know anybody. Is it a good idea?
The reason I pose this is because if you are renting, you effectively have a 1 year adjustable rate mortgage.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes,
but you don't have
rates
limits
go
on it.
20%,
You know,
right?
you don't. Most arms have limits on the adjustment. So I think that's why I think the 5, the 7 year, all great stuff because you get such a lower rate for 5 years, and then after that it could go up, 1, 2 points. There's different caps, but most people aren't going to be in the home that long.
Right.
But on a rental deal, you're in a 1 year arm with no cap on how much it can adjust. If you think about it.
Absolutely. And I think that is a great point. I think if you frame it like that, I think that's great. I'm going to take that and run with it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would start thinking about that framework and just getting people to think about it. Not because you're trying to be like all salesy and trick them into doing
there's
something,
nothing,
right?
There's
You're
nothing
trying
really
to
salesy about that. That's just the truth.
Yeah, it's the truth, and you need to give them some financial education and educate them on how to build wealth. And one way is to make sure that your cost of living is locked in.
Absolutely.
What kind of changes have you seen in how buyers are thinking about crafting offers right now? Are they getting aggressive in the number they offer, the terms? Are sellers responding to that, or do you think we're kind of in this like unknown kind of stalemate right now where buyers want lower, sellers aren't ready to give yet, and we don't really know who's going to
I think there's a level of uncertainty, but for me personally, I've had deals where at least the homes that I've been able to get under contract, they've been sitting on the market a little bit longer, so like it's past like that 12-14 day mark, and now buyers are writing offers at ask or lower with like the full contingencies, right? The full home inspection, appraisal, finance, and I've had one recently get under contract that I got 3% closing costs on a VA loan with no other offers in play. And so I think the right house and the right scenario, there's always going to be a scenario where there's competition, but even in the past 90 days, I've seen that just soften up a little bit. It wasn't like it was, in February or March, where it didn't matter what it was. As soon as you make that phone call to the listing agent, it's like, yeah, I got 4, 6, or 12 offers in my hand. I haven't had as many of those conversations lately, so.
Yeah, so there's definitely at the least some slowing down, and we kind of don't know where things will end up yet.
Most definitely, yeah.
So I think getting back to what we were talking about earlier, the emotions of buying a home, selling a home, you're just going to have to be ready for that as an agent, I think, and do a little bit more hand-holding, a little bit more question asking, and show some more patience.
Absolutely. 1,000% agree. 1,000%.
What would you say to a new agents out there that maybe have never, or agents with only a couple years experience that have never been, they've never known a market where it's not like multiple offers, right?
Right.
Like how?
Right. Yeah. And that's a great question. I think just one, educate yourself, be attentive, be aware, and just educate yourself about what's going on in the market. Be aware of what are interest rates doing. Be aware of and how you coach your clients. Like when they see on the on the news or whatever, and you talk about like the feds are raising interest rates, like know as a professional that when the feds are raising rates, they're not raising the mortgage interest rate. That's the federal funds rate. Know as a professional that the mortgage interest rates are derived from the 10-year treasury curve. Pay attention to what that's doing, right? I think just some like little things like that, just to be on top of, where things are at, what things are doing, because if you're uncertain, then your clients are going to be uncertain about the decision they're about to make as well. So I think just being educated and being prepared for any conversation that you might need to have, I think is going to be huge.
Hey, hold that thought. Do you want to get 100 tips for free from my best-selling real estate book, The Hyperlocal, HyperFast Real Estate Agent? If you do, go to hyperfasttips.com and you can download 100 of my best tips today. Again, that's hyperfasttips.com. You can download 100 tips on how to grow your business, get more clients, deliver more value to more people. Go to hyperfasttips.com.
Yeah, you have to kind of learn how to cut through the noise, cut through the news out there, and really focus on what is real, and then also on your market, because what's going on in San Francisco or Los Angeles is going to be different than like small town America, right? And even
Absolutely.
even in
DC market, we're a little, we might be a little bit insulated here in the DC
Right.
metro area. Like this is not rural Kansas, and those two markets are not going to be the same. So I think it's a great point as well.
Well, and it's also not a market driven and dependent on huge tech startup, valuations, which we've seen come down, and we've seen tech layoffs, right?
Right.
So every area is going to be different. And within that area, you're going to see, micro areas that react differently. So you really have to educate yourself and know what's going on in the specific space of each buyer client, because they will all be different, even though they're like in the same area.
Definitely. Absolutely.
What's been the biggest challenge for you throughout your entire real estate career, going back to even your lending days?
Okay. My biggest challenge. I think probably my biggest challenge is probably a self-imposed one, and for some reason I've always gotten in my head that the fact that I'm young is like a reason for somebody to not work with me, and that's like complete BS. Especially now that I've got the experience that I do. That was when I first started. I don't have that problem now. I know that I'm incredibly confident, incredibly capable, and I'm good at what I do, right? But when I first started, that was like a mental block that I kind of had for myself for some reason. Because I think when I started, when I joined the team, I think I was 23, and I just had this like thought, like, why would anybody want to spend $1 million with a 23-year-old? Like, why did I do that to myself? So I think that's one area where I struggled early on.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful to put yourself in a box. A lot of us do this. I've done it before, and I'm sure it's something we've all kind of been through. I think this is one of the areas where the team advantage really helps. I mean, you talked about the training that the team gave you as a new agent. I also think you get opportunities, right? And repetition is the way to overcome some of these self-imposed fears. So the
Absolutely.
leads and appointments
And
that
that's
the
the
team
biggest
provides.
thing. And that's the biggest thing, Dan. It's like those mental blocks that you set for yourself. Like once you do 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 deals, like all of that stuff goes away. And that's like one of the biggest advantages of being on a team. It's you have that. You have the ability to do that.
Well, and I think the other thing too is the environment. So you get around other people similar age or backgrounds that are succeeding, and when you see that, it kind of lets you know it's possible, and it motivates you. Right? There's a little bit of competitiveness as well.
Absolutely, and you put yourself in the room with people who are where you want to be, and all of those like self-imposed mental blocks or roadblocks, whatever, like that kind of goes out the window. It's just like what you're saying. If somebody else can do it, I can do it too. Like why is there a reason that somebody else is doing 40 deals? Why can't I? Right?
All right, Charlie, this has been a very insightful, fun podcast to do. I always like to wrap up with a hyper-fast round if you're ready for some rapid-fire Q&A.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, what's your biggest piece of advice to a new real estate agent?
Find a mentor. Find somebody who has been where you want to go, and just be a sponge.
What's your
Learn
biggest, or what's the biggest mistake you've seen experienced real estate agents making?
Getting complacent. Do you want me to elaborate on that? I can do that.
No, that's
Okay.
perfect answer. What's something you're doing in your business right now that you were not doing a year ago?
Spending more quality time with my clients on the phone, having more meaningful conversations just with clients in general, whether they're clients or their prospects, like being more intentional just in general with my follow-up, with the conversations that I'm having, and I think that's paying off most definitely.
All right, last question. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
10 years from now, that's a great question. Definitely still in the industry. I'd love to be doing enough volume to have myself my own little like mini team, of 3 or 4 other agents under me. So that's the ultimate like 10-year goal, at least professionally.
All right, well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Charlie. If people want to connect with you, either on social media or just reach out about buying, selling a home in the DC area, how should they do that?
Absolutely. I'm on Facebook. I'm on my first last name, Charlie Peavley. My Instagram is Charlie_Peavley. LinkedIn. Inquire on our Keri Shull Team website if you want to book an appointment with me, chat about the market, whatever it may be. But yeah, that's it. Hit me up.
All right, thank you so much for being on the show today. To all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in. Please share this episode with other people that you think would benefit from these lessons as well, and we will see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and go to hyperfastagent.com to learn about upcoming in-person and online events. And don't forget to share this show with someone that you think could benefit from hearing it, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere that you can find podcasts.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe.